Al-Amin Kimathi, many people might not know, but Al-Amin Kimathi is a journalist. What has been your experience in pushing for human rights, and how has the media responded? Just an honest critique as a former insider and now as somebody working for.
One issue that I would want to look at, which I feel has been here, the areas that I might be more relevant to, is the issue of propaganda and the way propaganda has impacted on our work. Journalists taking it themselves as propaganda pieces, propaganda tools. I would say, first, when I came out of prison 2 months ago, the first question that I was asked is whether I was a bitter person. I remember I said I was not bitter at all with those, the fellows who detained me. And I just fell short of saying, I'm angry with you, media. I was angry, but then I thought, what else did I expect media in this region especially to do beyond what they've been doing? And I was not angry for the sake of the issue of coverage about myself, but the coverage of the cases that we were looking at. One, the coverage of the July 7/11 bombing of Uganda and the whole operations that took place there, and the way the Ugandan media, which I was a little bit, at least, I was able to some extent, know what it was saying, because maybe even through second-hand reportage, or get to learn what the Ugandan media was saying, but I wouldn't even know what the Kenyan media was saying until much, much later. And when, I'm sorry, I've been a little bit lazy, I've not been able to audit what most of the reporting that took place in the last 1 year. The little that I'm able to do still tells me that media has been behaving the way we've always accused it of behaving in the last decade or so, when we expected media to have changed with the tremendous changes in the democratic space in the country. Hassan talked about embedding journalists with the security apparatus, and I feel this is what has happened so much in the years, and that's part of the anger that I had in me, that we have seen journalists throughout speaking more for the security person on the security apparatus than speaking for looking objectively at the human rights situation and the human rights issues that go with the stories that they're carrying. We, for instance, in the September 11 case, we had about 64 detainees. Ugandan media was telling the world, or rather they were telling the Ugandans that we have detainees of Somali origins. And especially the foreign detainees were all said to be Somali. Why that would be, I do believe, is what the security apparatus the security operators in Uganda would have wanted to tell the Ugandans that we have arrested very, very bad characters who are the Somalis we are at war with. And nobody critically, tried to place these foreign detainees and try to give even a little bit of the other story. For instance, Al-Amin Kimathi is not certainly a Somali national, and he's never been a Somali, a Kenyan of Somali origin. Even when we were brought down to a manageable level, maybe 64 were people that we could not be able to tell, the number was big. But then we ended up being 19 of us who were committed to the High Court. Then that 19 was a number that maybe would be easy to look at and probably do a more informed, more educated analysis. But with that as it were, why is it so important for the media in these parts? And especially, I'm asking, why is it so much so that the Somali community has to be treated as another community? I remember, again, the Horn of Terror that we're talking about, from Chelsea. When people were arrested in the country and taken out of Kenya, illegally removed from Kenya and taken to Somalia and eventually to Ethiopia, media was still saying these were Somali nationals or Somali people who were returned to Somalia. When they ended up in Ethiopia, nobody told us what they were doing in Ethiopia and who they were anymore. In fact, the story fell off. The story was just a denial, twice or so, denying that there were any people removed from Kenya. But media did not even go deeper than that. I mean, Kenyan media, or even East African media, if you may. While the international media saw this as a story, as a big story, where there was so much talk of renditions now happening, the mass renditions for the first time happening in Africa, Kenyan media did not see this as a story at all. But apart from saying 34 Somalis have been taken back to Somalia and eventually. And even when reports were published and given to the media, we circulated all these reports to media houses, to individual reporters we thought had any interest in such issues because of their beats. To the editors, to anybody who cared, nobody even looked at those reports to see that very prominently there were Kenyan names which couldn't be Somali. There were Ugandan names which couldn't be Somali. Why would it be that media has already taken it as an agenda to place this community somewhere up there for us to win, for lack of better words? The 7/11 bombings again, there are individuals who are in court at the moment, and I thought there was policy about commenting about court cases. The individuals who've been placed up there by the media, one is supposed to have been Osama bin Laden's successor. That's Kenyan media saying that this guy is possibly Osama bin Laden's successor. And at the time when the man is standing trial in Uganda, they have not told us what analysis have they done. What are these election patterns that you now come over and deduce that finally the Al-Qaeda are going to hold elections somewhere and elect this guy. And then again, while the security apparatus posits that this is possibly, this is the Al-Qaeda number 2 in this region, you also take it out without giving us the other side of the story. How did you get to that? There are children in prison in the renditions, rendered out of the country. Nobody bothers to say children should not, first of all, be in prison, be in detention, and should be treated differently from adults. Media does not even tell us. We're even talking about extradition, where there has not been any due process, no legal process that has taken place. And you would say that some Kenyans were extradited to Uganda, or some Somalis were extradited to Ethiopia, or for whatever reason. They didn't even say whether it's to stand trial. When there's a roundup, and these are the issues that we've been dealing with, of people in this elite, we'll not see media coming out to tell us what else has happened to these people. Whereas there are so many people saying people have been detained for longer than 24 hours, and those are the issues that we are raising as a human rights fraternity. People have been tortured inside those places, and people have not been taken to court. There's been a lot of extortion. Media would want to tell us, and they did several times in editorial comments, I remember the leader just sometimes towards in August last year when they said human rights bodies should realize that terrorism is a real threat in this region, and therefore when certain measures like this, like taking people out of the country, have been taken, we should not be hearing Muslim groups and human rights groups making noise. I wonder what happened to media looking at the other aspect of it, that due process, the law, the human rights of these people have to be upheld, whether they are suspects or not. Like Hassan would say, the extrajudicial killings. So many people eventually said, wait a minute, our people have died, and they started crying. But they could have been part of the people who are applauding the high-handed methods that were going on initially. But they were applauding because media has also made it their thing to have a round of applause for every report that they carry out. Not wanting to see that there's even another aspect of it that needs to be reported. And wait a minute. Finally, I have issues even with the current reportage of the Al-Shabaab, the current incursion in Somalia. I am told, and quite authoritatively, that certain media, I'm using certain media because media also uses certain communities, certain media has it as policy that we must strongly support the Kenyan incursion into Somalia, that never mind what else, we cannot question the conduct of the forces. This came out in my discussion with a middle-level editor, where we were asking, why is it that when fishermen are being killed, you are still saying that these ones are Al-Shabaab military? They were actually not sympathizers of ours. They were said to be Al-Shabaab, hit in the high seas after they failed to surrender. And you bring out the evidence that amongst them are several old men who are caught up, who are known, very well known within the villages, and even in Malindi Township. Human Rights Watch has carried a similar report. Media does not want to go with that story. I mean, and this certain house comes back and says, no, it's our policy now to support the war, and therefore we cannot carry this other aspect. Whereas there's several other media that is carrying the human rights angle of the tweet. There's a certain media house or certain media, a big one, that says it's our policy. I think this policy is making policy that we ignore everything else and carry out the government policy has been a thing that has been over-practiced in this country for quite some time. That then makes so much collateral damage, including yours truly.